You're in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station. 89.3 is WKKC. This is Focus Talk, the thought-provoking, solution-oriented talk show daring to make a difference in our communities. We're talking on a regular basis because the answers really matter. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about politics, religion, personal development, education, history, music, and then from time to time, we are spotlighting positive people who are doing positive things right here in the Inglewood community, throughout the Chicagoland area, as well as the entire United States. I'm your host, Dennis Snipe. Joining me in the studio today is Mr. Patrick Brooks. Mr. Brooks, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I am doing very well. Thank you for asking. Now, I understand that you are an author.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, give me some information about the book or the books that you've written.
Okay. Well, Unresolved Issues is a book series, and it's mostly about people that have issues, which we all have issues, whether we like to acknowledge it or not. Whether it be hidden or exposed, or whether it be seen or unseen, we all have issues. So I began to write about this because I want people to know that not only can we live with those issues, it's just a matter of acknowledging how we deal with them from day to day.
Okay. Now, when you speak of issues, what do you mean issues as far as financial issues or emotional issues, or I've got issues as it relates to me getting along with my siblings or my mom or my dad, or what kind of issues?
It varies. It can be just about anything. It can be financial because most people have different mindsets about money, and you really don't find out how different it is until you had that conversation. However, it could be something as simple as someone having an anger issue.
Okay.
It can be wrong choices in mates, your relationships, not so much romantically, but in all of your relationships. It could be something as simple as something that you're living with, as far as it could be a weight challenge that you may have. It could be a form of racism. It could be the way that your personality, you may not be socially conscious when you're dealing with other people. So it could be so many things. Some people have grown up with some form of abuse, whether it be emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. So you can live with those issues. Oftentimes in the field that I work in, a lot of times people tend to look at those issues as something that they can't live with. But those that acknowledge the issue, meet it head on, we can be successful and still have that issue in our life.
Now, when you talk about issues, are issues primarily negative?
No, I don't think so. It all depends on how you look at it, and also depends on how you live with it, and depending upon how you arise from it. So it doesn't have to necessarily be negative. You can have an issue in your life, and it can propel you to overcome it, and that can, set you up for overcoming the next thing that presents itself unto you.
So, Mr. Brooks, riddle me this. What makes you an authority to write on issues and their origin and how to overcome and what to do about your issues? Who are you to say that?
Wow, that actually, I'm glad you asked me that question. That's a great question. Other than the fact that I have issues myself, and I think that qualifies me.
Okay.
But also the fact that, I've worked with people that has issues all for many years. I've been a mental health counselor for 20 years. I've worked with adults and teenagers that have psychosis issues and or behavioral problems. So I know firsthand, day to day, what issues look like and how people either deal with them or not deal with them. So.
Okay. All right. So now, would being able to identify my issue, is that the same thing as like going to AA and saying that, hey, I'm an alcoholic?
Yes.
It is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you first have to be able to realize that you have an issue?
That's the only way that you can overcome it. That's the only way that you can deal with it. Yes, you got to acknowledge it first. Yes.
So now, am I able to find out about my own personal issues? Because, I've always heard that the eye can't see itself. And, everyone thinks as if though, hey, I'm okay. It's them that have the issues.
Right.
And they just don't understand who they are, as opposed to me misinterpreting them. They off, not me.
Right. And I agree with you. Many of us are disillusioned to the fact that we don't have issues. But again, like I said, we all do have issues. But if someone is telling you the same thing, if you're hearing the same thing from everybody, or you keep crossing this same road and you're dealing with it the same way and not getting the results that you're looking for, that's an issue in itself. So insanity is the definition of doing the same thing over again,
but expecting different results. Okay. All right. I can understand that now. So based on all of this information, how did you come to the point where you began to write it down, and not just in one book, but it's a trilogy, eh?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very creative, first of all. I'm more of a creator, more so than a writer. So a good editor is beneficial to me. But when you meet people day to day, and I'm very observant, and I like to study people. I like the study of human behavior. I like dealing with issues, meeting them head on. So basically, it's just a matter of knowing what you're looking at and dealing with it head on. The same thing that I'm writing about in my book.
Okay. Yeah. So the book itself, the very first book, is entitled Unresolved Issues, Revelation and Knowledge. So when I get through with this book, what will I know, believe, or understand? Okay.
Well, the book starts out with this young lady. It's in a family setting. And this young girl experienced some sexual abuse by her father. And I just take you on a journey through her life, a tale of events to show this young lady was unwilling to deal with this issue. She wanted to mask it. She didn't want to deal with it. She didn't want to talk about it. And I show you how not only did it come up later on in her life several times, but how it not only affected her life, but it began to affect the other peoples around her, like her husband, her child, and things of that nature, her friends, and her relationships, because she was unwilling to deal with that. Oftentimes, people have issues and they think it's something wrong if you go see someone to deal with that issue, and that's something that we have to get past.
So, you know what? And I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Brooks, because especially in the African American community, when you talk about mental illness, or if you talk about situations, oh, that's not me, I'm not crazy. And, that's not the right way to address it. And actually, that's actually derogatory.
Right.
And so what can we do as a people to kind of steer away from that and basically say, you know what, there's something that's going on here. I need to talk to someone so that I can get some help and fix it.
Well, that word that you use that people oftentimes use, crazy, that in itself is a negative, derogatory word. Mm-hmm. So naturally, no one want to put that onus on themselves to say that I'm crazy. What it is mental illness. And that doesn't make you weak. It's not your fault. That's something that you just probably was born with, that came upon you, or something that was laying dormant that happened later on in life, and you might have just moving along really fine. But sometimes we need a little help to balance us. If you had high blood pressure and, it was hereditary, or whether your intake of food was not as healthy as it should be, it probably would be a good idea to probably take a pill to kind of keep that blood pressure in check. That way that the heart and the other organs can stay in check as well. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why people think that when it comes to mental illness, and it's not always about medication. Let me please say that, because it's two components to living a healthy life when you have mental illness. One of them is therapy, mm-hmm. and the other one is maybe a balance or a stabilization in medication. But medication is not always the answer. The first thing, as we talked about earlier, is that you must acknowledge it.
Okay. Now, we've also noticed that there have been a rash of suicides that have taken place in our media, amongst different people that we've seen on television or in the business industry or in just various places, that they felt as if though that the only way to solve the issue was to take their own lives. And so, is there something that as a family member that you would look for in your loved one to say, well, something is not going right here. And what do I do as a family member to help my loved one so that they can get some help?
Yeah. Awareness is a huge component, not just for the individual itself, but also for family members. But yes, look for things that this person used to do that used to make them happy, or that they used to do that used to bring them joy. And if they're not actively doing that anymore, then there's a reason for it. If someone's appetite has changed, if they're staying enclosed or isolated more than you probably can remember, that's something else to take a look at. Not really wanting to talk, or appearance has took a decline from what they used to dress and look like or took pride in. That's something else to take a look. So there's many components that you'll look for, and basically changes in behavior. Anytime you see a change in a behavior, there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Okay. Book 2. Mm-hmm. What is it about?
Book 2 is a bit of a follow-up of book 1.
Okay.
But if you did not read book 1, I wrote it in a way that I didn't leave you in the dark. So I bring you up to speed and wrote it in a fashion that you didn't feel like you was missing something. Okay. But book 2 is about family, about this man named George. He had some issues, many of them that he had put to the side that were from childhood. And he was faced with a challenge in his home, in his family, in his marriage. And George became a very different man than who he was or who he was walking along his life being very much fine being. It changed George. And sometimes we don't know who we are until high pressure situations hits us. And that's what happened in George's life.
Okay. All right. Now, Mr. Brooks, how long did it take you to write this trilogy of unresolved issues?
Well, the first book took me 6 years, but that's a bit of a story behind that one. I was just still learning how to be an author. I was learning the business as far as working with publishing companies and things like that, and trying to make sure that make sure that my writing I wouldn't be taken advantage of in my writing. And I had an incident where I lost 6 chapters of my book because the motherboard had crashed. And it took me about 6 months for me to lace those bootstraps back up and get back to it. So I went on, finished the book, went back and recreated the 6 chapters that I lost. And it actually turned out better with me writing it the second time than the first. So the first book took me 6 years to write. The second one, I'll probably say another 4 years. But since then, I've been writing a little bit faster and I've delved into it a little bit more. So the third came out in 2015. And the fourth is on its way out now as we speak. And the name of that one will be When Justice Isn't Just. So look out for that. That'll be out in about the next 2 weeks to a month.
Okay. Let's rewind just a little bit.
Okay.
And you made mention that did you take a class to find out what you needed to know about publishing so that you wouldn't be taken advantage of, or you learned through happenstance, kind of like OJT, on the job training?
I did learn through happenstance. However, I had a situation where I got injured on the job. Mm-hmm. So I was off for about 6 months. So I had a lot of time to do some research, a lot of time to go to the library, a lot of time to look up online for things, have conversations with people. And I learned a lot by doing that because I had the time to do so. So, yeah, I learned by happenstance, as you said.